Good morning, everyone. We want to start this program right away, and we are hoping and expecting that our other guests will be joining us. First of all, I want to thank all of us that were here already. Thank you for making time out to be at the inaugural conference of a new department of interior architecture and design. It's a privilege to have you here, and we are not taking that for granted. We have our in-person audience, which you are, and we have our audiences online. We want to thank you for joining us. For the arrival of people, especially those who are not here yet, we will be observing some ground rules because this is a hybrid event. This is the only door out of this space, and if you need to use the conveniences, our ushers are outside to show you, exactly the locations. This conference is going to be in two parts, and the first part is to welcome our friends, guests, distinguished architects and professionals who are here, and our colleagues in the academic community, and most importantly, our students, because they are one of the beneficiaries for this event. So my name is Mokolade Johnson. I'm from the Interior Architecture and Design Department. My HOD will soon join us because he's observing protocol to bring in the VC if she will eventually come. But I want to recognize you one by one that you've been here. I can see my seniors. I can see our third speaker today, Architect Biodun Shonibare, who is also one of us. I can see a lot of our NIA executive. One of them is already here. And my HOD of architecture, who is also representing our dean, Professor Anthony Iweka, is here. So I want to recognize all of you. Please, let's put our hands together for them, all together. Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Without much ado, we will be calling our guests who are here to the high table. And I would like one of the ushers to be bringing them. The first person who is here to represent the ACON president is Architect Tofarati Badamosi. Please come up to the high table. He is representing the president of ACON, Architect Dipo Ajayi, and who is unavoidably absent. And we want to appreciate his coming. Thank you, sir, for joining us in this conference. Before we go on, maybe when the vice chancellor comes in, we will need to rejump or restart this conference, because it is at that time we want to officially play the national anthem and the University of Lagos anthem. So, but I want us to just go ahead with the program. The next person to call is Architect. I'm looking at him. Yes, I won't ask for your name too. So we'd like you to tell us your name. Architect Femi. Architect Femi Wahab. Architect Femi Wahab, you are here to represent NIA Lagos chapter. That's what I'm made to believe. So you'll be standing in for the Lagos chapter till the chairman comes. So please take your seat in representing the Lagos chapter. Lagos chapter, I know, but he's an executive of the Lagos NIA. Yes, you are. Today. So please put your hands together for him. Thank you for coming. None of our head of departments are here, but as they come, I will be recognizing them, except the head of the Department of Architecture. So please put your hands together for Professor Anthony Iweka. He's also representing the Dean. Please come up stage, sir. Please come up to the podium here. We are reserving the 2 seats in the middle for the Vice Chancellor and maybe one of his executives. Her executive, sorry. So we have Akon here. Please come to this side, sir. Please come to this side. Okay. So we want you to be relaxed and see how we drive this. I'm going to be talking to us about the conference itself. You see, interior architecture has come as a result of some historic steps taken by the university, and that is why we are here today. The old Department of Architecture has been unbundled to 3 new departments, and as such, we are able to, come to be today. This is a very historic occasion. I can assure you of that, because this is the first department of interior architecture and design in the country. I need us to clap for ourselves. For the University of Lagos, this is the first department of architecture, interior architecture and design. My head of department has just come in, and I need you to stand up for recognition. Dr. Jobi Akinfolarin is the head of department for interior architecture and design. So welcome, sir. Are we expecting? Okay, so we want you to come to the high table. You are the host today, and just take your seat beside the dean. Okay, so our HOD, please take your seat. So thank you so much. It's 4 a.m. in Kansas, it's 10 a.m. in London, and it is 11 a.m. in Lagos. This is a hybrid conference. It's of international configuration, in the sense that we have both local and international audience already, joined us online, and we are welcoming all of you as you are here physically, and also those connected virtually. Good morning again to you. Interiors in context, which is the theme of this hybrid conference, comes with a simple question. How does culture and climate shape spaces we live within and the lives lived inside them? How do culture and climate shape the places we live and the lives we live inside them? I need you to write that question down, because by the time our 3 notes keynote speakers finish talking here today, sharing their experiences, we must be fully loaded with more information to help us provide an answer to that question. So please take note of that question and let us see how we profile answers to them. The second segment of this program will be having our 3 keynote speakers in the person of Nisha Fernando. He's a PhD holder from Kansas and is the director of interior architecture, and he's an associate professor, School of Architecture and Design, University of Kansas. She is our first keynote speaker today. But at the right time, we will bring her up and she will be delivering her 20 minutes lecture to see how we move on with that. The second keynote speaker is Professor Dolapo Amole. She is a professor of architecture from the Obafemi Awolowo University, and she will also be joining us for her presentation. The third person, who is our third keynote speaker today, we want him to be on ground because we don't want everyone to be virtual. And that is in the person of architect Arc Biodun Shonibare, who is also here with us. And he will be taking the podium to also present physically. We have his slides, and I'm sure we are going to benefit from his wealth of experience as somebody skilled in the interior architecture profession, also as an architect. So we are all here today to enjoy this ride, and I'm hoping that we will be able to take great benefit from it. I also want to remind you that the launch of the Department of Architecture, advances design and education in the tropics, most especially. And it is supposed to be influenced by culture, by the culture of our people. And invariably, and most importantly, by climate and the materials that are at our disposal here, and the innovations that we can bring to bear on how these things play out. The conference unites academics and professionals and students to explore tradition versus modernity. You'll agree with me that before the advent of external forces, architecture has been practiced by our people, and it is also, a vocation that is not new to them because, after all, they've been building their own houses, they've been fashioning their own interior and exterior spaces with the knowledge and all the know-how that they have. So I want to also pause at that level to let us welcome some of the important guests that have joined us, and I would like them to signify when I mention their name. First of all, one of our most senior professors, Professor one of our most senior professors, Professor Odusami, is here, and he is here to just be our guest. He's a friend of the house, and he's here on this historic occasion to join us and give us moral support, as the Lagosians will say. Thank you for coming, sir. We appreciate your time. There's Architect Ekong here. Please rise up for recognition. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your friendship. And like we've been saying before you came, this is a historic occasion. We are going to be taking some photographs that when you see it in 20 years' time, you will be one of the history makers, the history writers for today. So I want to appreciate you again for coming, sir. Thank you. Architect Aneto has been our senior in the profession. He's a man of no mean repute as an architect. You would have seen some of his works in the rebranding of some banks, and I was privileged some time back to put some editorials together to describe his architecture. He has that. So Architect Aneto, our senior, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. For those who wants to do some CWES, we will connect you later. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you. So as we move on, we need to understand the reason why we are here. Architecture has been unbundled, and at the same time, the Dean FES is here. Sorry, sir. I wasn't looking. I've been carried away. You know, the Dean FES, Faculty of Environmental Science, has been our the faculty that gave birth to the Faculty of Architecture. So you can see that he's our father, because they are the one that set us up to become a new faculty. So I want you to give him a resounding applause as he comes to the high table. Sir, we have your table reserved. You should let's have your table here, sir. Let's have your seat here. Sit here beside our, please, sir. Thank you for coming. Please clap for him as he's going to sit down. Thank you for coming, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. So as he takes his seat, I just want us to, for those who are online, I want them to be observant of some rules. We call it house rules. You know, please keep your microphone, you know, muted, and be prepared for a Q&A session. And also just maintain decorum with us as we proceed. So I'll be calling on our invited guests. First of all, because the Vice Chancellor is not here yet, I want to call on the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture for his opening remarks. For about 5 minutes, he will be telling us that. We are changing the protocol a little bit. Don't mind my, my jumping ahead. Permit me to do that today, because today is our day, really. The head of Department of Interior Architecture and Design, Dr. Joby, will come upstage now to give his opening address. Please put your hands together as he comes. Dr. Joby.
Thank you very much. On behalf of members of staff of the Department of Interior Architecture and Design, I welcome everybody to this maiden departmental conference. All right. I acknowledge the presence of our deans, the HODs, and all professors and colleagues seated. We're hoping to get the representative of the VC, and also to our students, invited guests from ARCOM, from NIA, and other practitioners in the built environment. And we also acknowledge and appreciate the presence of those online. We thank you for joining us. Your presence today at this landmark academic event has provided us with an opportunity for scholarly discourse, professional engagement, and opportunities for exchange of ideas on contemporary issues relevant to interior architecture and the broader built environment. We'd like to thank our keynote speakers for accepting our invitation to speak on the theme, Interior in Context, Exploring Culture, Climate, Innovations in the Tropics, where we be sharing ideas on how we look at our interior, not just as physical spaces, but also as a reflection of our culture, climate, and communities. Let us also use the forum to inform us that our new department has created yet another platform for dissemination of knowledge with the establishment of a departmental journal called Journal of Interior Architecture and the Built Environment. So we welcome your manuscript for publication. As a boarding department, we look forward to the admission of our maiden undergraduate students. We are pleased to inform you that approval is ongoing for us to commence postgraduate programs next session, starting with postgraduate diploma in interior design and masters of interior design. We are also looking forward to a productive engagement with ACON and NIA, especially as it relates to the processes and procedures for registration and licensing of our prospective graduates to becoming practicing interior architects. With these few insights on activities within the department, I once again appreciate your presence and implore you to relax and enjoy the deliberation at the conference. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, dear pioneer, head of Department of Interior Architecture and Design, for that inspiring opening. We'll be moving on to the Faculty of Architecture, the Dean's remark, as he presents, is presented by Professor Anthony Iweka, who is ably representing the Dean of the Faculty of Architecture. Thank you for coming up, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, my dear colleagues. The protocol here, while we're expecting the VC, may I recognize the presence of the ACON president, ably represented here, and our leaders in NIA also represented, my seniors, the Dean, Faculty of Environmental Sciences. I can see also the most senior professor in environmental sciences here. You're welcome, sir. Now to all of us, the speakers, keynote speakers present here, and those online. My name is Tony Iweka. I am representing the Dean, Faculty of Architecture, Professor A.K. Adebayo, who is unavoidably absent. So he has asked me on behalf of the students and staff of the Faculty of Architecture, University of Lagos, to welcome you all to this landmark blended seminar organized by the Department of Interior Architecture and Design. This occasion represents an important academic and professional milestone for the department, also for the faculty and the University of Lagos as a whole. Permit me to acknowledge the leadership of the university under our amiable Vice Chancellor, Professor Folashade Ogunshola, OON, FAS, whose support continues to enable the growth of this new faculty. I commend the acting HOD, Department of Interior Architecture and Design, Dr. Akin Folarin Jobi, and all the faculty members whose intellectual labor has brought this department thus far. To our students and professionals in attendance today, let me say that this department exists for all of you. In fact, all of us. More importantly, it exists because of the future all of us will share and inspire and shape. A future that will endure a sustainable future. As already mentioned, the Faculty of Architecture at the University of Lagos is newly created. The faculty is founded on a long tradition of architectural scholarship, professional leadership, and social or societal engagement. Within this faculty, we now have 3 departments: the parent department of architecture and 2 forward-looking departments, the interior architecture and design department and the Department of Landscape Architecture and Urban Design. This academic repositioning is a deliberate attempt to ensure that architecture delivers an all-encompassing quality service in our contemporary complex built environments. Today's expanding world requires more specialized yet integrated design knowledge and design disciplines. In its own right, interior architecture is a rigorous academic and critical professional discipline. It is within this discipline that architecture engages space from inside out and most directly encounters the human body, the human memory, human identity, and everyday life. The theme of today's event, Interiors in Context, Exploring Culture, Climate, and Innovations in the Tropics, is particularly significant. Interiors in Context reminds us that interior architecture should be deeply responsive to cultural expressions, social practices, environmental mediators like climate, indigenous knowledge systems, available materials, and evolving technologies that affect our well-being. The subteams mirror the curricula and research vision of the new department. And that is to provide innovative education that balances critical theoretical inquiry with applied professional competence. While remaining grounded in local context, the Department of Interior, Architecture and Design has been positioned to meet internationally benchmarked academic and technical competencies that are essential for professional accreditation and effective practice in today's design environment. We are particularly honored by the caliber of our keynote speakers. Their works span education, practice, and research across continents. Their presence affirms this department's commitment towards collaborations across institutions, across disciplines, and across geographic divides. As we commence today's program, I invite all attendees to participate actively and engage deeply. It is my hope that this event will serve as springboard for a robust academic and professional trajectory for the Department of Interior Architecture and Design. On this note, I formally welcome all of you to the Department of Architecture, to the Department of Interior Architecture and Design, Faculty of Architecture, University of Lagos, and I wish everyone a productive and enriching discourse.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that inspiring address by the Dean, Faculty of Architecture. We still mix it up most of the time because, you know, when you just leave home, you think that every big man you see is your father. But today, we all know our fathers. Thank you so much for coming, sir. Without much ado, the ARCOM president is ably represented here this morning by architect Tofarati Badamosi is here to represent. By the way, I hope we understand what ARCON is, or who the body we call ARCON is. They are responsible for accreditation. They are responsible for regulating the architecture profession, And they are also supposed to give birth to new allied professions in the built environment, like as we are hopeful today that they will give birth and license, our products from interior architecture and design. So they are very powerful, one of the government established agencies to regulate the practice in the built environment. So we recognize them. But before he comes with his address, I want to recognize the presence of one of our big friends, architect, who we cannot look at and say, we don't even know whether he's still on our side, but on the side of the bankers. His name is Architect Adebi Olagbami. He came in while the other speaker was. So thank you for coming. We really appreciate your time. You are looking good. Maybe because you are wearing my kind of favorite colors. So we're really grateful for your coming and your time here. Thank you so much. So going back to the ACON President's address, Architect Tufarati, Flores, you should come over here to do your remarks. Thank you. Please clap for him. It's not easy to represent the president.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on wherever you are listening in from, all the parts of the world. My name is Architect Oluwatu Farati Badamosi. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold, but I hope I should be able to do this successfully. I'm standing in for the president of ACON. ACON is the acronym for the Architects Registration Council of Nigeria. And I would want to, while the last speaker was talking, I just took a look at the audience, and I noticed that most of the students listening in had their faces down. I would like to crave your indulgence that for the few minutes we'll be here, let's see how much we can soak up from the wealth of knowledge that most of these people and speakers have to offer. And I really hope that you'll be better off for it. I'm standing on all existing protocol. As I said, I'm representing the president of ACON in the person of Sir Architect Dipo Ajayi. The president and the entire council, and indeed the community of architects in Nigeria, wish to use this medium to congratulate the Faculty of Architecture and indeed the Department of Interior Architecture and Design on this occasion. This indeed is an epoch-making event, and we are indeed glad to be part of it. The University of Lagos continues to be a trailblazer as far as architectural education and excellence is concerned. We anticipate that this tradition will continue with this department. It's important that, we can explore the hidden depths as far as various architectural endeavors are concerned, and in this case, interior architecture. I read a book a while ago about architecture of place and time. And in the context of interior architecture, it's rather becoming a necessity that our interiors become a true reflection of our identity. Identity speaks to who we are, where we have been, our core values, and what we represent. As interior architects, words like authenticity speaks volumes about originality and exploring technologies that make our local materials more enduring, resilient to our ever-evolving climatic condition here in the tropics. It's my hope that these lectures can throw more light into exploring various versions and experiences that our well-curated and seasoned keynote speakers bring to the table, and can further extend the frontiers of knowledge that will enable this budding but rather highly potent, sought after, and economic building specialty in architecture to thrive. Archon continues to collaborate on a wider scale to build capacity and in the process, gradually closing the gap between town and gown. It is hoped that the summaries and decisions and highlights of these lectures will be well documented, shared with us to further improve outcomes across the industry. Thank you for listening, and I wish you all a fruitful and enlightening lecture today. Sir Architect Gabriel Oladipo Ajayi, President Archon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. While we were here, and I was thinking that the Vice Chancellor is not with us, but I've been ably informed that she's been online all this while. So, and that's the kind of person she is. Somebody who can encourage you without you knowing.
I am back.
People, true encouragers. She's our mentor. She has given us enough room to excel here without fear or favor. So we want to acknowledge the presence of the Vice Chancellor, the University of Lagos, Professor Folashade Ogunshola, OON, FAS. Please, I want a resounding thank you, Ma, for coming online. We want to give you time now to give us your hope or remark as we continue with the program. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I was late, but I'm trying to navigate like 3 or 4 things at the same time. But it was important for me to be here at your first webinar because of the importance of your new department. Let me welcome all the people, to all those who are here to the University of Lagos. The university made the faculty, turned the architecture department into a faculty because we appreciate the necessity for improving our built environment, and we needed to diversify so that we could really take in all the different aspects of architecture. And so I'm really pleased that this is happening, because what I'm hoping to see in the next 5 years is the impact of architecture from the University of Lagos in our built environmental space. Let me say that everybody knows that I'm always looking for how we can make sure that our built environment speaks to our context, how we have local content, that the innovation really has to be, how do we have buildings that are energy efficient? How do we use the knowledge, our indigenous knowledge? How do we start to navigate new materials that can be sourced locally, and so that we bring our indigenous knowledge into the 21st century? I'm no architect, but I'm a believer in us being innovative around what is ours. I'm not, and I think I'm always challenging Dr. Kolade Johnson and others to start thinking in a wider sense how we create environments that are truly unique to us. I see beautiful architectural drawings. I see lots of interior spaces. I'm looking for the African space much more than that we need to get away from the European concepts, so I have people I love, like Kere. I love the innovation of, I can't remember her name now, the architect with all these spaces, with all the curved spaces. And I'm looking for those in architecture and even in the interior and our spaces that really speaks to us. So as you deliberate today, I wish you the very best. I'm looking forward to getting a communique from you, and I hope that we will continue to challenge you to be, to really put us on the map. So congratulations again for this maiden meeting, and I wish you all important deliberations, fruitful deliberations, and I'm looking forward to the outcome. Thank you very much for inviting me, and I congratulate the new department. You've started well. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Please don't go away because we have one or two requests to make. The first one is that the NIA President National wants to pay us a visit. We would like him to come and pay an official visit to you anytime he comes. The second one, I know this one is your friend. That is the president of ACON, Sadiq Wadrai. He is also going to come at during some time later to pay us homage here and see how your friendship with him can be explored by our new department, because we'd like to take that further. And we want to thank you for the time. The third one is that we are still doing some in-house webinars, of which it's a monthly and recurring webinar discussing issues about the built environment. And we are drawing speakers from every angle, every profession, law, medicine, which you belong, and a lot of other professionals have been coming. We started this January, and we've been collaborating with the University of Lagos Library to make it a recurring webinar where scholars, researchers, even students comes to present their work as it relates to what we need to do about the built environment. So, Ma, we'll be coming back to you and hoping, that we will get your usual support. So we want to thank you for today. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming. And, we know that you will still be online because we have 3 keynote speakers already waiting to deliver their papers to support the agitations that you have. How do we come under indigenous knowledge systems to make sure that, we have identity that are reflected in our public realms, in our homes, in our neighborhoods. So we thank you for encouraging us in that direction from the Interior Architecture and Design Department. Thank you so much, ma'am. We appreciate you. Please, I want a resounding applause for her.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. So we'll be going to the short address from the dean, our dean of the faculty. He's also the dean of our faculty, but he's from environmental science. And we want him, before he leaves, to give us his short remarks, sir. Please. Goodwill, everything. All join. Thank you, sir. Please clap for him.
Thank you very much. Standing on existing protocol, all I will say is from Faculty of Environmental Sciences, we've been together for a very long time, and I wouldn't call it a kind of nostalgia, homesickness. Having you, architecture living the environmental sciences, but nevertheless, we want the course to be enlarged, and God has made it possible. Well, it's just a goodwill. On behalf of the Faculty of Environmental Sciences, I'm here to extend our best wishes as you continue as a department and a new faculty to explore the significance of interior context in architectural designs. Our expectation is that all your work in the area of space, lighting, materials, and human experience, fostering interiors that are both meaningful and responsive to our environment. We wish we continue. You as a new department to reshape our environment that enrich the built environment with clarity and purpose. Once again, on behalf of Faculty of Environmental Sciences, we appreciate all our guests and the speakers. And as CRL said, it is going to be a monthly event. I hope our students, our children, they'll be able to gain from all this exercise and know that it is not by error that you find yourself in this wonderful department. Once again, I wish you success concerning this program. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you so much, sir. He's a friend of the house, and he's someone that we usually go back to for advice, especially he's an experienced administrator, a former head of department, and also a professor, with a lot of experience to guide the younger ones. So thank you, sir, for coming. We hope that you will still be there all the time when we come and see you. Thank you, sir. So we want to move on quickly to the address by Architect Femi Wahab. He's wearing two caps. He's representing Ikeja, chapter of the Lagos Institute of Architects, Ikeja chapter of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, Ikeja branch. So he is here, but I forced him to also represent the Lagos State Chairman, Architect Biodun Fatui. So whichever way you are going to do it, you must play the ball and represent the profession clearly, and I'm sure that you are more than up to par. Please, a round of applause for him, Architect Femi Wahab. Please keep clapping for him so that, he will be able to get here on time. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like you to permit me to stand on existing protocol. I want to congratulate University of Lagos because you used the word that I like earlier on bonding. Over the years, architecture has just been, they ask you, you have a degree in architecture and there are no components. There are components but are not recognized. But by the establishment of this unbundling, it has helped us to have a horizon to expand and improve the profession. My guy is not here, Architect Fatui. He is the chairman of the Nigerian Institute of Architects, the Lagos State chapter. And I'm just one of his boys. So I won't speak much. But I'm happy about the topic. Interior in context, exploring culture, climate, and innovation in the tropics. And on face value, it speaks to me, first and foremost, about cultural influences. We're going to have to go behind things about traditional materials and patterns. We may have to go deep into the past to look at some of the traditional architecture that we have. Incidentally, I was with architect Mrs. Oshason yesterday in Lasutech, Ikorodu, where she spoke eloquently about this. It will also speak to our heritage. Now, the climatic responsive designs also is something that we mustn't take for granted. For instance, if you look at the people in the north, the kind of architecture they have is different from ours based on temperature. The architecture we have in the south is different from that which is in the same thing when you look abroad. You know, some people want to keep the heat in, some people want to let the heat out, which speaks to the type of designs that we have. That's windows and all that, and types of ventilation. Innovations. The innovations that we have today must be sustainable. They must be able to sustain themselves. Technology must be green. That's where we find ourselves now. And some of these modes or models, some of them have to be adaptive. The reuse of some of these things will need to be adaptive in tropical designs, so that we are on a daily basis improving what we meet, even as architects and even as we grow as architects. So I'm looking forward to a very fruitful deliberation. I like the speakers that you have chosen, and there are people that are well known and will give us some good food for thought. Once again, I want to thank you for the privilege of being here. And like I said, I'm one of the boys of Architect Factory. I'm sure he will join us somehow and also come with the big speeches. Once again, thank you very much.
For joining us on this occasion. So I told you that we have this conference in 2 segments. Someone has been online from Kansas since 4 a.m. their time, which is now 5 a.m. You know, I want to appreciate Dr. Nisha Fernando, is the Director of Interior Architecture and Associate Professor, School of Architecture and Design, Kansas University or University of Kansas. He is the first keynote speaker. She is the first keynote speaker. And I met her because that was through an introduction by one of our ex-students who went to their university for his PhD thesis and graduation. That was about 3 years ago. And since then, we became friends. When we were looking at, or we were getting worried about how this department, Interior Architecture and Design, would take off, she was one of the people I naturally called. I was invited as a chapter author in one of the Routledge books that is just being published this month. So she's a person of great experience when it comes to the built environment through interior applications. And what struck me most concerning her bio was the fact that she's a mentee. She was mentored by one of the notable authors in the built environment. That was Amos Rappaport. I'm sure that if you have been researching in the built environment, especially as it links to culture, you would have come across Amos Rappaport. Amos Rappaport was his supervisor, his PhD supervisor, and when he was leaving their education system, she championed publishing a first script for her. So as she comes up, that is Dr. Nisha Fernando. I want us to listen to her presentation this morning. It's still morning for you, Nisha. So we're expecting that you will deliver powerfully. I'm actually happy that you are speaking first, because you are bringing it in from a new perspective for architecture. People in our audience here includes practitioners, professionals, architects of many years of experience. You've just listened to our Vice Chancellor, and we have our students both in the room and in the annex that we have also organized. So you might not be seeing everybody, but we are getting to over 100 here. So I want to appreciate your time. Thank you for keeping awake to be our keynote speaker today. So without much ado, I would like to give you the floor for the next 20 minutes to deliver your presentation. Thank you, Nisha.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Luckily, I'm a early morning person, so this worked out okay. I didn't have to really wake up too early. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson, for inviting me to join you. And even though it's early morning, it's a pleasure to actually be able to join you and also be a part of this very important milestone in your faculty as well as the department. So I will not take too much of your time. I will share the screen. Please let me know if you can see the screen okay. Let me actually just do that. Hold on for a second. It doesn't let me share for some reason. Just give me 1 second. Not sure what's going on. Can you see the screen okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again for inviting me to speak at this very important inaugural event. So I will be speaking to some of the topics some of the early speakers also brought up, especially your Vice Chancellor as well as the Dean and several others, how we look at interior with cultural identity in mind. So my topic will be culture specificity and identity of interior spatiality. Now, one of the things that is very important to understand is that culture specificity in interior is not just about cultural identity in general, but it's also understanding that we spend 90% of our averagely speaking, 90% of our time indoors. So designing our spaces accordingly and designing our spaces that speak to us culturally or otherwise is really critical. And that is why I'm drawn to actually research and teach in interior architecture, because that's the kind of spatial design that affects the human beings the most. So when we speak about cultural identity, I would like to actually start with a little question. You all see the screen here, and I have 4 different images of hotel lobbies. You probably can tell that they are hotel lobbies. Would you be able to tell me, I'm not really sure how this would work, maybe online or through chat or maybe in the audience, speak out loud. Can you identify the location of these hotels? For example, either a country or even a city, whatever that comes to your mind. Anyone? I'm not sure if anyone is speaking, but if you cannot, I cannot probably hear you if you're in the audience, which is fine. But if anyone wants to speak out, I see somebody in chat. It could be anywhere globally, says Jacqueline Aki. Thank you, Jacqueline. True, but can you guess even just looking at it? Okay, to save time, I'll probably move on. So the 2 top, this particular one and that particular one, I hope you can see in my pointer. These 2 top images are actually in Sri Lanka, which is my native country. And these 2 bottom images are in Mexico. In fact, 2 of the hotels that I have visited myself. But just like Jacqueline and maybe others in the chat said, yeah, Europe, Arabia, Asia, you can tell that it's difficult to guess because they look very, what we say, global, or it could be very uniform. It could be also that we have generalized our design so much that the identity of the spaces, just the visual part of the identity of the spaces, are gone. And why did I bring hotel lobbies? Because hotels are actually the face of a culture, especially when you travel when tourists come to a country, that's the first thing that they see, a hotel lobby specifically. So when that identity is sort of shaped by the global trends, obviously the culture specificity gets lost. So that's a kind of a sad thing, isn't it? That we are trying to design, especially interior architecture, being like I mentioned, that's the space that we spend the most of the time in, not necessarily looking at exteriors of a building, but we are actually experiencing the interior of the building. But then we design them according to the global trends. And that by doing that, we lose that very, very important cultural identity. So looking at that particular aspect is very critical, that we actually identify how we design spaces so that we don't lose that identity. So here is how we have approached it, at least at the current moment. So I come back to Sri Lanka, my own native country. And I see, I show you that here are the same hotel, by the way. Both images here are images of the same hotel, where they have brought some cultural specific aspects, especially visual aspects, or what we call cultural aesthetics in. So as you can see, some of the interior spaces where the bedrooms are, it's more like a little cabana style. You can see that this is a particularly very important cultural emblem in Sri Lanka, sailboats of the fishing community. They have brought in these little canvas dishes that they have been using in the sailboats as a cultural symbolism, aesthetic symbolism, into the interior space. Same here, a very identifiable cultural furniture piece, which wicker weaving was brought in to represent the interior. So when you look at these interiors, somebody might say, okay, yeah, it's not global anymore. It has a kind of a culture specificity. Hold on to that thought. We'll talk about this in a minute even more. And here are some, since I talked about Sri Lanka and Mexico before, here is a couple of Mexican hotels inspired by the Spanish-influenced Talavera tiles. And you can see that these tiles have been applied. The color palette has been applied. So when you walk in, obviously you identify with the location, you identify with the culture. Same here, influenced by the Mayan history and historical aspects, the tiered buildings, of course, the tiered pyramids, and they have brought that in to represent some of that cultural symbolism. Now, both these examples, going back to this and that, are very direct aesthetic implications. So you see something that is very cultural, and then you take it and you apply. Now, we can also take a step back and ask ourselves, is that the right way to go about? So what exactly is cultural identity? Is it something that is aesthetic only? Is it something that we see? Excuse me. You had to pardon me. I have just recovered from a really bad flu, so my voice is somewhat all over the place. So when we look at a deeper idea of the concept of the cultural identity, and specifically culture, what do you mean by culture? When we refer to it, and we all refer to it, we all use it, but it's time for us to kind of take a step back and understand what is culture. Obviously, it's a very critical phenomenon, but it's also at the same time very vague. If I ask you what exactly is culture, you probably will have multitude of answers, because we are not 100% sure. The concept is pretty vague. So that is why I would like to actually bring this particular intellectual or research framework that for one of my very esteemed professors, my doctoral advisor, Professor Amos Rappaport, has put together back all the way back in 1990, but it's applicable even to today. How we break down culture into much more usable components or identifiable components, much more smaller scale components. So let me explain this particular framework really quickly. So culture is really broad, obviously, and it's also not very tangible. It's vague. It's a concept. We all know it's there, but we cannot really identify it. So what Amos has done is that he has taken this broad concept and he broke it down to more small scale pieces. So culture is a worldview. Every culture has its own worldview. We can start with that. And worldview is shaped by shared value systems. So Nigerian culture, for example, will have a particular set of shared values, which would be a different in Sri Lanka or in any other country or any other region of the world. And these values are actually coming from various cognitive schemata and images and meanings that cultural histories carry. And that is represented directly in how we live, our lifestyle, what kind of spaces we have, how we use a space, how we actually define what we need in a space, how we actually look at a particular space and understand that for our particular cultural needs, that's how we use it. Think about your kitchens, for example. Kitchen is a really interesting space, not just because it's a space for cooking, but also every culture looks at cooking and the use of a kitchen very differently. So that's just an example. So how that is actually then can be broken down into activity systems and systems of settings, meaning kitchen as a system of settings. Kitchen will have a place to cook, place to prepare, place to wash, place to store. And if you look at different cultures, each kitchen can be very different, and we can actually call them all these things different systems of settings. System of cooking, system of preparing, system of storing, as such. And then this particular aspect can be now observable. So now we come to the fact that we have culture as a very broad and tangible concept, but now it's actually less broad and it can be tangible. You can actually touch things, touch objects in the kitchen, touch objects in any space. You can actually visually see it, whereas culture cannot be really seen. So this particular framework is really useful, the way that Professor Rappaport has brought to how you break into smaller tangible pieces from a very broad concept. So in every speaker, as I mentioned earlier, stress the importance of culture, but I'm trying to point out that how we can use that concept, culture, and then actually try to get into a researchable kind of framework by using this particular framework that Professor Amos has brought forward. Now, going forward, I would like to, and this is something that I have done in my own research, we can take this even further to say that settings are made of fixed, semi-fixed elements, what Amos referred to. Fixed elements are things that you cannot move. They are like the space, the four walls around the interior space, the ceiling, or sometimes even fixed furniture, windows, doors. You cannot move them. They are there once you design them. And semi-fixed furniture can be furniture or any other movable objects that can adjust as you need. And then non-fixed elements are obviously the people who use them, we call them elements, but also other aspects you cannot even touch, like for example, olfactory things, that's things that you can actually smell, things you can touch, tactile elements, auditory elements, all these sensory elements are also very important aspects of those systems of settings. And then this particular set can also be now very specific to a culture, and it's also actually somewhat intangible, certain things, but they carry a lot of symbolisms and meanings. And this is why this particular aspect of studying about culture is really important. It's not just about looking at how we take something from our culture, like the two hotel examples I mentioned, if you think that certain visual elements represent the culture and you come in and you plug them into the interior so that it represents the culture. But it's going beyond those visual aspects, going beyond those things. We have to understand the symbolisms and meanings behind those cultural idioms or cultural visuals. And the meanings that we carry about them is also very important. So going back to that aspect that I mentioned earlier about, I'll use the example of the sailboat that I showed you earlier. Bringing that example of the sailboat, texture, sailboat shape, and the material aspects and plugging them into an interior hotel bedroom is great. It works. However, it works for tourists, not for the people of Sri Lanka, because the fishing community will identify it as part of their culture, but rest of the culture might not. They might think, well, it's somewhere, it belongs to the fishing community. I cannot necessarily relate to that. So therefore, those meanings behind the visuals are very important for us to understand too, rather than superficially bringing something in and plugging it in and calling it a day. So this is why we had to do research about this, identifying what exactly are the meanings and symbolism behind visuals that we think that are culturally representative, and going forward, and very important for me to emphasize that, going forward from really directly applying cultural visuals into a space and calling it, now we have the culturally identifiable interior spaces. So this is the kind of the framework I would like to present, really going into this really broad concept of culture, breaking it down, but also breaking it down to tangible things and going again back to the intangible to uncover through research what are the conscious and subconscious meanings that we carry and how can we bring those meanings into the space. I'll give you some examples here. So this is, I'm just borrowing from my Sri Lankan cultural identity because we are talking about tropics here too. Climate-wise, it's pretty similar to Nigeria. So I thought it would be more appropriate to bring that. So these are three interior spaces, as you can see. These are mostly residential spaces in Sri Lanka. Lots of cultural elements like these carved window elements that are very common in Sri Lanka, furniture pieces, they are very identifiable aspects. So the wooden ceilings and different types of furniture, but they are all very culturally specific to Sri Lanka. Many decorative objects, some are colonially borrowed. That's a whole different topic. And I'm sure you can relate to it too. The colonialism in tropical countries like Sri Lanka and probably Nigeria, and how colonialism actually has become part of the tradition sometimes. Over the years, these colonial aspects have been embedded so long that they have now become part of the cultural identity. But that's a different topic altogether. I won't get into it now, but I just wanted to show this. Now here we have this very interesting direct objects, tangible objects that actually we can pinpoint and say these are cultural specific aspects or elements that we can incorporate into a design. However, going beyond that, because you can obviously set up this type of space anywhere in the world, any tropical country, you can create this, but meanings behind this could be more important to understand. And I think that's what makes an interior space even more strongly cultural specific, that the meanings that we have rather than just how things look. So here is a good example of how we can actually identify that particular meaning. Vastu Shastra is a very common approach in South Asia. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's Vastu Shastra in Sanskrit, the broader language is called science of building. And space here in this particular philosophy or particular approach to design, any space, it could be an entire city, it could be a land, it could be a building, or it could be an interior space or a set of interior spaces. They're conceptualized as the center of universe. It actually originated in India, and in the Indian, specifically Hindu culture, the religious culture, they recognize the space as a representation of this particular human figure, but it's not just a human figure, it's actually the representation of God, center of the universe. So God is represented as the figure of a human being, and the presence of the God is there in the space, whatever the scale it is. It can be a city, it could be a room, as I mentioned. And the center of the person is where the navel is in any human body, and navel is, as you probably know, is the center of gravity in a human body. And in the sense of the divine presence of the God, it's also very important because that's the center of the universe. Then I hope I'm making sense here when I'm representing this very cryptic sometimes symbolism. So basically, the idea is that this particular human figure represents God, and the center of the gravity is also the center of the universe. And when you translate it to any space, the center is the most important space in any particular building. So if you look at that, typically in the tropical countries, including India and Sri Lanka, the courtyard is the most important space in any building. And you might think, well, courtyard is just an empty open space. Why is it important? Well, it symbolically represents the center of universe and center of the essence of God, so to speak. And therefore, it has a very deep symbolic meaning. And therefore, it has that sort of a anchoring of the spatial layout. And interestingly, I can talk about this concept for another hour, but I will move forward because it's a very important, strong concept, and how that translates into actual buildings in two ways. The meaning is, if you have a courtyard, it actually represents that symbolic meaning. It's a divine space, and it's an important space. But it's an interesting practical implication too, because having a courtyard in a tropical country, so this particular idea of cultural identity and meaning now overlaps with sustainable design too. How we design for the climate? The courtyard actually sucks in, as you probably know, hot air rises. So as the courtyard is open, like you see here, in this diagram, if you cross-ventilate the building, it actually sucks in the hot air from outside, the air movement from outside, and it actually moves all the air into the courtyard, and then because it's open, it actually rises above. So anything that is hot in the interior space right here gets sucked out because of the air movement, and it pushed out to the courtyard, and the courtyard actually releases it, and by doing that the interior gets the passive cooling, which is a really important strategy if you look at the climatic specific design. A very simple thing, but it actually has a really big effect, and it's very effective building, especially in Sri Lanka. Until very recently, no building was air conditioned at all because of that cross ventilation and the courtyard combined into their design. So very simple aspect, but it works really well. And also the additional benefit is, the bonus is that it also has this very deep cultural meaning. So if you looked at it as a courtyard, as a place where they have this very important climate centered design, yes, but it's a manifest function of the space. But it also has this latent function because it represents the center of universe, and the meaning of the building actually carries more. So looking at it both more functional and the latent meanings are important. So it's not just a courtyard, it actually has a culturally identifiable meaning. That so it's in Sri Lanka and also in India, a courtyard is not just a beautiful space that cools the interior. It has this deep embedded cultural meaning. So these are the things that we need to identify going forward. So you can see now, obviously courtyards are there for to cool interiors, but you can also see it doesn't always have to be the center of a building. It can be just the courtyard. Introducing a courtyard into a design has that sort of a deep meaning that goes carried. It's culturally identifiable. And finally, I would like to also speak to some things that we look at. Traditional buildings. So a long time ago, I was involved in this particular research. We actually studied the interior indoor air quality as well as the thermal comfort levels, various types of houses across Sri Lanka. And we found that this particular very traditional house, thatched roofs, mud walls, mud interiors, pretty much materials were just mud and thatch and a little bit of stone and wood. This kind of porous materials like thatch and mud actually really helps the indoor climate really well. Amazingly, we studied all kinds of different houses, very modern houses to very traditional houses like the ones that I'm showing here. Without any doubt, we found that these traditional houses were the most thermally comfortable houses, and they are also biodegradable by nature. You can see these are materials borrowed from nature, and they go back to nature when the houses actually get old and dismantled. So also they can be very renewable materials. Thatch and mud are very naturally available in Sri Lanka. So we don't have to put steel and concrete and glass and increase the indoor thermal quality and then suffer, and also we waste energy by air conditioning. So these are the lessons we can learn from cultures. In addition to the meanings, we also have to understand what works for a culture and what doesn't, with an open mind and without any stigma attached to it, because these types of houses are obviously looked down upon because they look old, they look poor. And so looking at how we can go forward with these ideas, understanding globalization of interior architecture need to be analyzed. Should we go with the trends? You said that earlier when I showed you those 4 images of the hotel lobbies, it can be anywhere. So it's time for us to stop and ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Why do we keep doing this when we can do better? And how can we do better? We have to really think about shunning any stigma about traditional architecture, traditional elements that we know had worked for years and years, but also not just the functional aspects, also the cultural meanings we carry, and we bring forward those cultural identity aspects. And also, of course, it has a double bonus, as I mentioned. Cultural architecture also has very important sustainable qualities that we can learn lessons from. So understanding, of course, cultural meanings, as I mentioned, spatial meanings are very important. So rather than trying to fit in, and Sri Lanka is notorious for that, we design buildings that are, I hate to say this word, but it's horrible. It doesn't fit the culture. It doesn't fit the climate. People suffer, and we are really bad in actually wasting a lot of energy. And so if you are looking at ecologically friendly designs, we are going backwards rather than going forward. So it's time for us to stop and really take stock on what we have been doing, what we can learn, and really apply research. And this is why research is really important for interior architecture, because it actually guides us to the spaces that we spend most of our time in, 90% of our time, as I mentioned. And interior architecture is not decorating. It's much, much, much deeper because it affects our lives completely directly. And I hope that I didn't rush too much. I also didn't take too much time. And thank you for your time. And I will wait later for any questions. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I would also like to take this opportunity to wish the new department all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nisha. Thank you for your time. And you really drove it home with a lot of keywords that can help us to, even apply what you did in Sri Lanka, the case studies you have, and apply into our context in Nigeria. So I want to thank you very much for that insightful presentation. Thank you so much. And you talked about a lot of things which resonates with us here. Courtyard space as a divine space, a space that is thermally comfortable, and with so much lessons to learn, we should stop designing placeless spaces, places that really don't have any origin. It can be in Dubai, it can be in Lagos. You cannot identify with any particular place. So thank you for driving it home in symbols, in identifying with the location, and with so many other words that are, important for us to understand how we design, to reflect the identity of where we are and whom we are. So thank you so much, Nisha. Please, you'll be hanging on for question and answer from you. But I want to say to our online audience that you should please put your questions in the chat box. It will be directed to any one of our speakers, and I hope you make them very brief and straight to the point so that you can get the answers that you'll be looking for. Thank you so much, Nisha, and everyone online. And that takes us to the next speaker, an architect of no mean repute, an educator, someone who has been in that business for so long. And her name resonates with a lot of our invited guests today because she is from their university, the Obafemi Awolowo University. And her name is Professor Dolapo Amole, a teacher, an educator, a mentor of so many of us seated here from the Department of Architecture. I wouldn't want to say much about her because we already know who she is. And she is the next speaker, and she'll be talking to us from our perspectives and our experience, in those categories. So welcome on board, ma'am. The floor is yours, and you've been given the right to share your slides as you wish. Thank you for coming, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Please let me stand on the existing protocol also because of the time. And it's my pleasure to come on board. Sorry, just a minute. I think. Yeah, okay, good morning. So I wish to stand on the existing protocol and thank you to all those seated and especially the MC, Dr. Kolade, and the HOD and the Dean, Professor Adebayo, and the Vice Chancellor, Professor Folashade Ogbunshola. And I want to also thank the last speaker too. So, because I'll be taking off from where she stopped, because as she stopped at that last slide, she mentioned this idea of globalization, which from where I take off. And I think that just works perfect. So again, I'm Dolapo Amole. I teach and I coordinate the interior design program that is on in the University of Obafemi Awolowo University now and has been on since 2019. So thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Again, I just want to say congratulations to the Department of Interior Design in the Faculty of Architecture in Unilag. This is a new fit and more grease to your elbows. So I'll just keep this. So I'm just going, my thesis for today is quite simple. I'm an educator, and so I'm going to end by helping us to reflect on what all this will mean for the education of the future designers. So starting off by understanding the context in which when I looked at the flyer, I knew that one of the big things that we deal with when we have to deal with the issue of culture and locality is the idea that we're now living in a global world, and there's no escape from it. I once had the privilege of reading a book by Anthony Giddens. It says The Runaway World. So I said the world is just running away, and there's just nothing anybody can do about it. So we're living in a new world, and with inevitable consequences and irreversible trends, which means we can't go back. The whole world is being globalized, and it is happening without our input. It's just going on, and we're just caught in this web of globalization. The consequences are not reversible, so we can't say we're trying to go back to our culture. So that doesn't exist anymore. It's not possible to, because there's this mix of cultures that is, as we connect in so many ways, media, travel, tourism, everything, it's an irreversible trend, and we're just here to live with it. So what are we going to do with it? This picture shows an image of an apartment in Lagos, and which could also have been anywhere, like the last speaker said. So we're not going back. We've been detraditionalized, and there are consequences. And all this has happened through social media, travel, tourism, global trade shows. We're all attending international trade shows. Our clients, our students, everyone is now more global than you think. They live here, but they don't really think here. They don't think anymore local. So all the brands are global. Google is global. So many brands are global. Furniture is global. Carpets, everything, all the movable items are global. So here we are caught in this. And now we're talking about our local identity, cultural identity. Even our design tools are global. So we're just in this global world. So, and this globalization has come with both opportunities and challenges. It has brought us into a place where, yes, where there are a lot of advantages to take from it, and at the same time, a lot of challenges. And it's a very complex matter, sometimes complicated by the political context and the economic context in which we live in. For example, if we want to minimize the challenges, we don't know of any. There are many policies, economic and political policies that make it difficult to overcome some of these challenges or even to take up some of these opportunities. So it's actually a bit complex, but here we are. We live in a new world, and that world is global. That world is here to stay with us. Like I said, that we do have a lot of opportunities. I mean, we have wider sources of inspiration for learning and professional growth. We're linked up. Many organizations and design practices here are becoming more global. They have a wider reach for customers, for designers, for clients, for markets. So it's really a beautiful thing. Wider access to international materials. Even many clients want their furniture, their pieces imported. They even import it by themselves without the knowledge of the designer. They bought everything and they just want you to fix it. The industry, we collaborate with other professionals. We can work anywhere in the world, whether we're there or not. And so there's this continuous cultural exchange and that goes on, whether we're aware of it or not. It also comes with its challenges, and that is where we are now. And one of those challenges is our local cultural identity is being eroded. We're now becoming places for the international style. Our local materials are going, the crafts are going, where the cultural identity, authenticity is declining. We're no longer proud, we're no longer associating with what we call local and cultural. And of course, there are market pressures. Everybody wants to make ends meet. So that's a challenge. And if you are not doing the international style, you are not doing it the modern way, it's pressure, it's a market pressure for you. That's what the market wants. And unfortunately, we don't have access to resources similarly to be able to cope or compete with our colleagues, with our colleagues elsewhere. We don't have equal access to global resources. And we also can't compete because we don't understand the professional and institutional barriers. The regulations in countries are different. So those are some of the challenges. We're not trained to work internationally. And then there's just the styles are changing so rapidly. You just have to, there's just a very rapid change of everything, materials, techniques, styles, consumers, the market itself is changing. So there's also a pressure to keep changing and to innovate continuously. So that's a key challenge. These are key challenges all the same. But how do designers negotiate these global issues, global challenges, at the same time taking the opportunities in this globalization, at the same time preserving local culture, our local identity? I think that's the thrust of this, our discourse today. So that's the key challenge. How do we navigate this globalization and also preserve our cultural identity? I wish to say that that particular book I said that I read opened my mind up to something very important that has been with me. I think I read this book more than 10 years ago, but it has been with me ever since. And that is that in this age of globalization, the local identity, your local and cultural identity, in fact, becomes even more precious, becomes even more important, becomes of even more value than before. This was enlightening, and it's made me to start to think of how come this is so? Why is the local even better now? Why is our culture supposed to be of more value and importance now? And the reason is simple. It's because in a state of globalization, standing out, you can only stand out, you can only be of a competitive value if you have an identity. And where are you going to get that identity from? It's from your locality. Otherwise, you'll be lost in somebody else's culture, somebody else's way of doing things, and you can't stand out. Everybody's looking for an edge. Everybody's looking for a way to stand out. So the local identity matters because it gives us a stability and a belonging and a sense of esteem, worth, pride, and it helps us to prevent cultural dominance, or what we call cultural another culture having its own say over yours. Cultural dominance, colonialism, yes, cultural colonialism. And then it also gives you the opportunity to improve and represent your local identity. It's also a foundation for resilience. You know, you can always go back to that safe mode. I mean, I'm talking generally now that strengthening your local identity gives you stability in all that we do. And one of the things I also come to find is that the local identity has a lot of economic value because everybody is looking for something new. Everybody's looking for something more innovative, and everyone is and it's in selling your local culture that you have a market niche for yourself. Otherwise, you'll be selling what everybody is selling. So local designs are becoming of such high value nowadays. I mean, we have the Japanese having their cultural ideas selling faster. Yeah, because it's different. It's different from the Western one. It's different from the South American, the Mexican one. So, and I also read something that, I mean, it's also important because what's also important is understanding our local cultures, because we'll then be able to sell better. They will then be able to give what that system needs as professionals. I mean, I'm saying this because I also read another book that talks about selling to Nigerians. Quite an insightful book by a very famous marketer in this country. You know, I mean, there's a way in which you present and sell things to a Nigerian that is different from selling to other people. So understanding cultures, and especially our local cultures, helps us to know how to sell, because we learn many things by the books, but we find that they actually sometimes don't apply to our cultures. So the local identity does really have economic value. I was talking with someone a few weeks ago who wanted to have and design an Airbnb for develop Airbnbs for sale. And I said, you know, people are going to come from all over the world. What you can sell, what can make this place sell, is that it represents our local identity. They want to come here, not for all the things, experiences, residential experiences they've had all their lives, but the ones they haven't had. And the ones they haven't had is our Nigerian local identity and local culture. So that's, in a nutshell, tells us that, you know, what the local is becoming more is important even now. And we just need to catch it and get on board of trying to integrate into the global designs that we're coming up with, or into the international style that is pervasive and prevailing. We have to integrate our local culture into it. And not just our local culture, I must also say our locality, the very essence of the fact that we live in the tropics and what it means to live in the tropics and not in the temperate zone. So the issue and the question now is that, yes, this was what I was trying to remember. Are we going to allow ourselves to be passive recipients or active adapters? As a passive resilient, you fall into the mold of imperialism, other people's culture dominating your culture and deciding what you would obtain. But as an active adapter, knowing that we live in a global world and we just, and we can't escape from it, the world, we ourselves are changing culturally, because as we mix with other cultures, we don't remain the same. Or would we find a way of adapting all other cultures that we're interacting with to achieve a hybrid and a new culture, which is the only alternative that I think is possible. And that's why cultural hybridity is the only other way we can go. And that means a blend of the global and the local to create a new identity. And that's already what I believe should be happening. Although what we have more in the design industry, in our built environment, is a lot more of cultural imperialism. And that is because we're not being challenged. We're not allowing ourselves to be challenged to consider and to know that our own culture is even more important now, having a lot of economic value and giving us a lot of stability and identity. So how do we integrate, or how do we achieve cultural hybridity? Now, what most people understand by adopting, trying to represent your culture in the design world, in the interior, or in architecture, is twofold. Something, when we talk about this, something that, oh, they're asking us to use local materials that are outdated. They're asking us to go back to our traditional buildings. No, we can't. We can't even go back. The world is now a different place. Materials have changed, there are different, cultures are not also the same. And some also think that it is, okay, picking elements from the culture and just copying it and pasting it on as murals, pasting it as this. No. So, and that is where our innovation is later going to come from, because it calls on our not copying, but abstracting from culture. And when we talk about abstraction, we mean abstracting patterns, abstracting geometry, abstracting symbols minimalist, not a pastiche, but an abstraction. That's what we mean by integrating culture to form another cultural hybrid. And that's why I have some of these images that show this fact that our spaces can look global, international, contemporary, at the same time feel cultural, feel local in every way. Another way is to adapt local materials. As I was looking at something that Nacha, yes, as I was looking at something, Nisha, so one of the images of the traditional houses she put up, I realized that the issue with that, what makes that kind of traditional building work is the thermal mass that the materials have, is the small windows and the large overhang. And we can have all of this using global technologies, using new global materials. So the way to go is to use local materials with global technologies, using our local materials finished to global standards, producing our local crafts to international standards and in international manners, and our traditional materials, and combining these things with smart systems. So I once had a student talking about the fact that the reason why our clients want imported things is because they complain of the quality of our local of our indigenous manufactured pieces of furniture and all that. So we can see that it's not as if locally we can't achieve it. It's only because we need to combine it with the global standards, and also need to use global styles to discuss our local narratives. I mean, for example, having a minimalist building, but that responds to the local climatic conditions. Telling our local stories, but using the global styles. I say you can do a minimalist design, you can do a maximalist design, but to fit our local culture. And also responding to our local ways of living. Layouts that really have done a good programming reflecting our local lifestyles. I mean, I think it's the way in which we're not adapters, where we just copy and just install. So, and this is because we have not tried to think very well of our own culture and other people's culture that we may have to design. Because as someone who is living in the global context now, we also need to understand how to decipher culture, how to interpret culture, how to understand it so that we can design. Because we will soon be becoming more international. I have colleagues who are not Nigerians and design for us here. How do they do it, and how could they do it successfully? Only by understanding our local context. So we also need to have ways by which we understand other people's local context. So we also do it by just our simple color palettes, using our color tones that have meaning with us traditionally. And a final way that which we can integrate culture, our local identities, is by collaborating with international manufacturers, helping us to localize, helping us to finish to international standards, or in fact, making sure that international brands when we have international brands to design for, making sure that we integrate local artisans to work with them, to be mentored by them, and to grow with them, and to help them to make their work better. And finally, I mean, we can also do this by interpreting. We have global concepts that we have to adhere to when we now design. Sustainability, circular economy, green interiors, and biophilic design. We need to be able to interpret them in local ways. For example, using local materials, using local ventilation techniques, and the result will be a new identities which have not yet fully developed, but which we need to develop in our country. Afro-minimalism, digital heritage, interiors, contemporary vernacular. So these are new realities that I hope we'll be able to get to. And I've kind of mentioned this earlier before, and that to be able to do this successfully, it calls on innovative, it's an innovative thing, innovative process. It calls on our innovation. It calls on our critical thinking. It calls on, we can't, it doesn't just come because it's easy to transfer, but it's not easy to integrate, to adapt something else, somebody else's, to adapt an international style to fit your own local identity or local context. It calls for innovation. It's an innovative process. So I'd like to make this thesis statement that in trying to achieve this, we're necessarily going to have to be innovative. There's no way you're not, this process of hybridization of our cultural identity is going to call for innovation. Because they're new. It's going to open up new design problems. We're not just going to be designing a Scandinavian place that has a Scandinavian feel. It must be adapted to our local context. And that calls for an expanded design problem in integrating our culture. And this is something I do all the time with my students because they need to be trained to be locally relevant all the time. I'm going to skip this. I'm checking my time because finally, I just want to say that all of this have implications for us as educators. Education is the foundation of all that we see in any nation, in any society. So we need to be able to train students to think and not just to produce. I also like to say that education is a very powerful, it's not neutral. As educators, which I believe many of us are, or mentors, which I believe many of us are, is not just teaching for the sake of teaching. We're trying to reproduce people of a particular kind. So it's ideological in itself. It's a political also in itself. And we need to be able to maximize it if we want people that can think differently in the future. And to get that, our goals as educationists need to be tilted to know that we're designing not just for a global audience, but also for a local audience. I mean, we're designing for a global audience, which means that we need to make sure that our students are globally up to date. They are familiar with the global world. They are familiar with global standards. They're familiar with international standards. And secondly, that they can interpret cultures appropriately. This is a major work on its own because it calls for excellent programming, collecting excellent briefs that can analyze our cultures or different cultures, since they may be called to design for different cultures. So it calls on looking at our curriculum content and how we deliver the goals of our curriculum, and also calls for a lot of exchanges. I have a colleague in another university outside the country who we exchange our students. We ask our students to design for their cultures and their students to design for our cultures. So this intercultural exchange helps the student, because when you're in a particular culture, you don't see yourself. It's other people that see you, can see you better and can analyze you very well. So it helps the student to know that, oh my, So Nigerians are really like this. We are like this. So this is what they see of us. This is how we are. So, and that's also helpful. So as part of the program delivery. And so our curricula need to teach students to be culturally responsible, and that we need to also lift our cultures, our local identities up, and not be colonized by every other person's ideologies or way of thinking, and to critically examine what we're doing or what we're designing and respond to local conditions. And then we need to develop curricula that teach skills to interpret culture, foster critical thinking, challenging the students to think critically, and also know that there are new research questions to be answered for those who have to deal with research issues. And it also means that as educators, we need new design, we need new skills for teaching. I always tell myself that no, many people come into the career of teaching design. You need to be taught to teach design. You need to know how to deliver, what to deliver. And so our design educators must become cultural theorists, which means that they are and cultural mediators. They're advocating for a cultural hybridity, and also need to know how to be facilitators, challenging students to be innovative. So in summary, we live in a global and local world. The local and the cultural context is even more important. So every effort to challenge us to respond to the local and the global will actually make us more innovative. Every effort we take to do this successfully will be innovative. Innovation will automatically come. When there's a problem, innovation comes. And that's the challenge we have now. Cultural hybridity, making sure that we're blending both the new cultures we're getting, the global culture we're entering into, and our local culture in successful ways. And our role as educators is fundamental and foundational and highly important, as we are, or many of us are in the education field, or even as professionals where we need to mentor. And we can't build a nation that is globally respected if we don't build future designers that respect the culture and the local in this rapidly globalizing world. Thank you for listening. I'll be waiting for the questions. I hope I didn't take too long.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. I told us before you came on that you are a seasoned educator. So I thank you for delivering, even beyond my expectation. Thank you so much, ma'am. And please hang on for question and answer. There are so many questions online, both for Nisha and yourself. So if you have a way of getting to the chat, you might be seeing some of the questions. So maybe you prepare your response ahead of time so that we can see how you deal with that. Thank you, ma'am, again. While we're going to move quickly to our third speaker, that one is not online. So for some of you that are already dozing online, we can see you virtually. So please wake up. The third person, the third keynote speaker is in the person of architect Arc Biodun Shonibare, who has also been one of us here. He did his MED here and also has been in practice. But I will tell you the reason why we called him. He is an architect because we have some information out there that anybody can be an interior architecture designer. And we are saying that is not going to be possible because you must have your base where the knowledge base is. So please, you will carefully listen to him and his narratives so that our students and some of us who are also still going to be mentoring students can learn and gain from, pathways in which we can point them. So I'll be calling him up, Architect Biodun Shonibare. While while we were in, one of our officials, have you seen anybody giving penalty to a president before, a chairman? So I won't do so, but they, he said I'm on my own. The chairman of Lagos chapter, Nigeria Institute of Architects, came in while one of the presenters was online. So Architect Biodun Fatui, thank you for coming. You have to come and collect one cap because we told him to wear 2 caps. Collect 1 cap from Architect Femi Wahab. Don't go away. You are sitting there. You are from Ikeja. Oh yeah, this one is from Central now. Oh yeah, please sit down. Okay, Architect Wahab wants to leave. Okay. Please, so thank you, Architect Wahab. We appreciate you. So, Architect Biodun, please sit down and let us see how we deal with you today. Thank you. So, Architect Biodun Shonibare, is your time. And please, you have maybe less than 20 minutes. Oh. But oh yeah, quickly take your time and let's see how we can deal with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. It's quite interesting to be the 3rd keynote speaker. All of you're all looking tired. Maybe do you want to stand up for a bit? Just stretch your legs, right? Just to warm up. You can just stand up. Because I'm going to load you with a lot of information that, so that your brain doesn't overwork itself. Just stretch your legs, seriously. You definitely need it, trust me. Hey, yeah, that one has. Yeah, for 2 hours plus. It's not anthropometric. Yeah. Ergonomics. All right. Thank you. And I'll kick off. Sorry, I don't have jokes. Ideally, in a setting like this, when you guys have had like 2 keynotes, somebody will just come, say something hilarious, you get active, but sorry, you just bear with me. It's not working. Operator? Okay. Is it? No. Backwards? Unfortunately, okay. I cannot see what is there, but I would simply just say it from what I know because I wrote it there. My name is Arc Biodun Shonibare. I'm a graduate of architecture from Covenant University, where I had my BSc. And then I also did my master's in environmental design from the University of Lagos. I actually have 3 masters, but the latest one is the one I did in Universitat Politécnica de Catalunya in Barcelona, which is a master's in parametric design in architecture. I'm a member of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. I'm also Archon licensed. I'm also a member of the Interior Designers Association of Nigeria. So what you cannot see, I will try and, I'm an associate partner at Studio Stone Designs, which is the firm I practice in. And then I lead the research department, which is called Shiflag. It was initially a research department, but because of the amount of work we were getting, it had to evolve into a business entity on its own. And you'd see that from the works I would show. So I'm an architect, I'm a computational designer, I'm an educator, and I'm a maker. Literally, my LinkedIn link is there, and my social media page is also there. Next slide, please. Okay, so So pretty much, I'm just going to talk about what I do, why I do what I do, and projects in context. Just to, it's going to be an experiential talk, right? So I've designed stuff like light fixtures to ceilings, such as what you're seeing over there, to complex geometrical structures like this 32-meter span gatehouse, which was designed and delivered in 2 weeks. If you've been to Abeokuta, you probably see it there at the MK Abiola Stadium. And then facade design installations as well, such as this particular facade. Next slide. Seems not to be working as fast. And then obviously I give talks. I mean, last year I was at about 12 different schools giving different presentations. The latest one was at FUTA, where I spoke about bamboo in construction. It's not as fast as I want. So, okay, so I'll start with this, why I do what I do. Dream until it's your reality. I studied architecture because, in fact, I didn't know I was going to study architecture until the day I filled my JAM form. And on the TV, Discovery Channel, there was a program called Mega Structures, where they were showing the documentary of the construction of this particular building called the Guggenheim Museum Bilbao by the late Frank Gehry. You know, I was so inspired by the structure that I said, yeah, I'd like to be like this man. And so I filled architecture in the JAM form. And funny enough, my final year project topic was computer applications in architecture. These are the things that, you know, led the trajectory towards my professional practice. If yeah, okay, if you tell someone to create a box, depending on who you tell to make the box, if it's a student creating a model, you can literally just get your cardboard and then create a crucifix, and then, you know, it's a developable surface and you just fold it and you create a box. If you give a carpenter, he simply just takes a chisel and, you know, carves it from wood. So basically the tools you're exposed to and the knowledge you have will determine how you actually make things. So the first tool I'll talk about is the use of AI. And you can't see it clearly because the screen is too small, but I would simply just read what is there. It's a LinkedIn feed from one of my mentors, is a professor, Professor Diego Garcia. And he was talking about how he used AI to develop a design concept. Yes, it was used to attract the client, but you also need to be able to make or execute whatever you design or whatever you submit. And so he used GANs, which stands for Generative Adversarial Network, which has, I mean, when people use AI, you need to go a bit deeper and understand how the technology works for you to really use it to its maximum potential. So GANs literally works like this. You have a generator and you have a different discriminator. A generator is like a con artist that simply just, it has seen something before and it tries to replicate it to the best of its ability. And the discriminator is like a police officer that knows, oh, no, this is not real. So, and it's pretty much how architects design. You know, where when you're given a brief, you go and do a case study, you study buildings or you study spaces, and then one way or the other, you're literally picking things. Your brain is literally picking from each, you know, storage place in your brain, and you know, and it brings out a particular design idea, and that's how GANs works. So there are different models that I use. I use Midjourney or Stable Diffusion. Why am I talking about AI? Is literally because I used it in practice once or several times, to be honest. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. Okay. Sorry. So I'll talk about this particular project, the John Randall Center for Yoruba Arts and Culture. As a member of IDAN, I mean, the beauty about joining associations such as the NIA or IDAN is the fact that you get to network with people and you get to people tend to like send jobs towards you, you know, if they feel you're capable of actually executing something. So a mentor of mine in IDAN literally introduced me with someone in J. Randall and said, oh, I don't know what she said, but when the person called me, the person spoke highly of me that, oh yeah, I heard you're so good, blah, blah, blah. I want you to come and design an interior for me. So we went to his space, things we take for granted. When you're doing visual communication, we all think it's all about graphics. It's more about observance. But now that we have our camera phones, we can actually, you know, take pictures and actually sit down and study, faster. Anyways, we went to the space, the CEO's office, the entrance library, the entrance reception and the library. We did some mass sketching. However, when clients tend to think they are the only ones you are working for, they approach you and they just feel you're not doing anything for anybody else. And which is not the case in Nigeria. You have to make ends meet by working for multiple people to generate income. So obviously, time was not on my side with this particular client, but I came highly recommended. I couldn't disappoint the person that recommended me. So how best to approach the work? Taking his brief, used some, and after several iterations, I came up with this particular concept using GANs, right? It had this, he wanted a table that was symbolic. It wanted a lot of art installations in his office, right? And pretty much I just generated this after 50 iterations or so. And he liked it. He didn't know I used AI or anything. And I was happy with it, And that was when I realized it was quite a funny client. Sorry. So he wanted everything to be symbolic. If you put a carving on something, it must have a meaning. Sorry. Yeah, are you moving? Okay. And so, he had books. I had to research on Oduifa. Is it moving? Okay. Literally, which was like the tenet religion of the Yoruba spirituality and all. There are about 16 poems. And so there was a modern version of it, which is on the right. Pretty much is the same thing on the left. But then they say creativity is plagiarism undetected. So we decided to, next slide. We decided to morph. It's not so clear, but we literally mixed everything together and came up with the symbols below. And after doing that, we had to manufacture it. And so, I wasn't scared when AI generated those images because I do know how to make stuff. I do know how to execute stuff. We do know it's part of our research in the department. And so we had sent the file from CAD to CAM, sent it to a CNC router. For those who don't know what a CNC router is, it's almost like a moving spindle that moves in the X, Y, and Z direction. And you can literally control your drawings with the machine. And so it will carve out whatever drawing you send to it on any piece of flat sheets that you want to incorporate your drawing on. And so with that, we were able to create the table, having its symbols, its unique symbols. Next slide. It's not working. Is it? Can you help me? Still loading. Okay. And then even down to Adire, apparently I didn't even know those patterns actually had meanings and symbols on top of them. So you have the likes of the Pepeye, the Japa, and Kokoro. So I had to study all these symbols to be able to make everything in his office had a meaning to it. He didn't just take anything for granted, even down to his plants. He had the mother-in-law plants for chasing away evil spirits, so many things. Oh, okay. There was the lotus plant. I think the idea was if it blooms at a certain period in time, then that means it's going to be very rich and prosperous. We're hoping it blooms anyways. So and it's Sorry, breaking transmission. Sure. Okay. Okay. Oh, we're back online. Thank you. And so even at the rare fabrics as well, I had to study the symbols and actually used it to make the artwork behind his desk. Using the CNC machine as well. So from CAD, you send it to a CNC machine and you carve it out, and then that's actually his office. And you did well if next slide. So yeah. So presentation, actual work. And the client was happy because he uploaded it on his WhatsApp status, but that shows well. Sometimes you do work for somebody and you don't hear from the person again. That's not a good thing, but I'm very happy with him. So the next project I would like to talk about is this particular ceiling. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if you can see the details. It's a parametric ceiling by DHK. DHK is actually an interior design firm here in Nigeria. I think it was founded by a group of Unilag students, funny enough. So they had reached out to us to help them design and execute this particular ceiling in Roxton Street, Ikoyi. I'm not going to talk about the design. I'm just going to talk about the execution, right? Whenever a client approaches you in December and tell you most of the time, they always want you to finish their project in December because they want to open up in December, and it's a culture, time is always, something one should consider when working, but hey, we can always do it if you give us the right amount. So yeah, we took on the project. But the challenge was, so these are the details, right? It's made of boards, CNC cut boards, being hung by a slotted track. The problem is the accessory for hanging the ceiling is not readily available. One would either have to import it, or you approach companies like Tower, and Tower has a minimum order. So if you do not meet their certain volume, they wouldn't really take you seriously. So we had to be a bit creative with how to, hang the ceiling. And so what we did was we got U-channel aluminum profiles, and then we cut them into bits, and then we drilled holes, and then inserted bolts and washers to be able to hang it. It worked, funny enough, but the challenge is the boards we have in Nigeria, this U-channel, they are usually made to standard. The space in between it is 18 mm. But the current thickness of boards we have in Nigeria, it used to be 18 mm, then at some point it was 17. Currently, the latest project we've done is now 14 mm, which is very sad. I don't know. We need to have a conversation with SON and on materials. Anyways, it was able to work. We're able to hang the slats. However, it's always good to improve on something. It worked, yeah, but the thickness, like I said, was smaller than the U-channels. At some point, it was bending. It's not so noticeable, but as architects, we're trained to look at the details. And so we always wanted to, execute better. And so we decided to, for future projects, we decided to come up with using 3D printing technology. So we modeled our own accessories and, printed it and, actually fabricated it. So, 3D printing is not just about creating fancy models for build, for your school projects or anything like that. You can actually use it to create accessories, even your window openings or door handles. I've used it on several projects, but this is just a case that we used it for. So I would also like to talk about form finding in nature. Architects, designers, we always use nature to inspire our work. This is a very popular one called the Voronoi. It's been adopted in the Beijing Water Cube Stadium. And how is it created? You know, I used to think it was random until, yeah. If you fill up a bowl with sand and you puncture it with holes, you tend to get this particular pattern. It's called a Voronoi, you know. And so when I saw, or when I heard about things like this, it got me involved with, okay, there's something about nature that, you know, if I study it deeply, I might probably get something from it. And back in architecture school, I wasn't really so serious then, but I've had to go back and dust my notes because we were taught form finding by some masters in architecture. And I'm talking of the likes of Anthony Gaudi, Frei Otto, or Heinz Eisler. I don't know if final year students, if you guys remember these names. Okay. So Anthony Gaudi came up with this theory about the catenary chain, where if you hang a chain and if you flip it, it would be stable. It would be in equilibrium, literally. And so the likes of Frei Otto, who is a German architect, he used to do it, hanging chain models, soap skin bubble, to be able to generate forms that were always in equilibrium. No structural calculations were done because nature itself was in equilibrium. This is Anthony Gaudi's work, responsible for building, for designing Sagrada Familia, a building that's been in construction for decades now. Hopefully they will finish it in maybe 2030, hopefully. And then Heinz Eisler, who is a structural engineer, who does his work with concrete, he simply just suspends clothing fabric. He freezes it and he turns it upside down and he uses it to create shell structures. That shell structure is just about 50 mm thick and it is spanning over 30 meters. I agree, Chima. So, I mean, these architects used to do this thing the manual way. But with technology of today, using algorithms like Grasshopper, you can actually simulate this kind of forces on systems. And so with that, oh, okay, yeah. In all my presentations, I always use this analogy. It's the Matrix. If you watch the Matrix, when Morpheus tells you to choose, either you learn about algorithms or you don't. And it will tell you, it will give you which advantage you would have over your peers. But I'll tell you to pick the blue pill, study about algorithms. Everybody needs to study about algorithms. Anyways, so digital fabrication has impact on design and sustainability. Sorry, I'm having to rush. I have 20 minutes. Please, I need to read this literally. And I can't see. My eyes are very sorry. So this is a book from one of my professors, but this is an excerpt I'm just going to read. Nowadays, a complete digital designer is a multitasking individual capable of controlling the necessary tools, both digital and physical, for the development of a design. Now, this means that design and crafting techniques should be together. Students from many fields, such as architecture, design, arts and crafts, engineering, etc., are forced to learn many different softwares in order to develop their ideas and integrate themselves into the uprising, competitive, professional work environment, right? But the thing is, their designs have to go outside the computer. And so nowadays, we can find more laboratories integrated into universities and high schools with digital fabrication tools. These laboratories' standard equipment usually include laser cutters, milling machines, and 3D printers. But other tools such as vinyl cutters or robot arms, what students usually expect are mock-ups, but it is even more interesting to explore and experiment on these machines and materials, as many new options open up in the fields of design and research. What I'm just trying to say is, the faculty should invest in the tools, right? I mean, it's a new department, it's the university of first choice, you know. To be the trailblazer, we should have the tools so that the students will be able to adopt these particular techniques. And just like the analogy of how the box was made, depending on the tools you have, with the kind of tools you have would define the kind of designs you can actually produce. Okay, yeah, this is me on a trip to Avila in Spain. On the right is me and a friend, Miguel. We were classmates in 2016, my second master's. And was quite interesting to note that he had done very well for himself. He owns a company called Nagami Designs. They've gotten a lot of awards in terms of 3D printing using robot arms, from chairs, furnitures to sculptures. And why are they so popular? They use waste, which is an abundant resource in Nigeria. It's local self. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be mud or anything. So far it's local, you use it, right? We have the tool, we have the materials. So we can recycle, or should I say upcycle it. And this is Nagami's factory. It has about 50 robots. You know, this was somebody, it was my classmate. Literally, he had the, second-hand robots, and then he has expanded to 50 robots, which is quite interesting. And this is a shop made entirely from plastic, recycled plastic, bottles, the skin, the reception desk, everything was made from recycled plastic. The resolution is not so good. You guys are not tripping. You should be tripping. But yeah, anyways, during Design Week Lagos last year in February, I was part of the curators for the Makers Lab. And so I wanted to create a particular piece for the exhibition. And on the right is a table by Foster and Partners. And it was done using fabric formwork and concrete. But I wanted to be able to make this with the limited tools I had in Nigeria. Is it possible? Yes. Using form finding techniques, like I had explained, digital form finding techniques. And then what? 3D printer. I was able to create the pieces, and then assemble it just here locally in Lagos. And I got a painter here to help me body fill. And I got an artist. This is Aki. He's also a student from Unilag, pen-rated artist. I told him to help me put some symbols. Unfortunately, it's not so clear. But by the time it was done, yeah, this piece was made. And you wouldn't know. Oh, sorry. So I would also just like to advocate, for the Department of Interior Architecture to please invest in tech. It's very useful if you want to be on the, if you want to be in competition, in the same competition with our colleagues across the world. But in closing, I'm also pleased to share that in line with IDAN's strategic objectives, the association plans to host 2 student-focused workshops over the course of this year in terms of digital fabrication in the department. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time and the dimensions you brought into the discourse. Thank you. And even the advocacy, what we need to do and what we have to do. Whatever you do, you must survive in your locality. And that is key. When you jump out to another place, it becomes a new challenge. But you have demonstrated that we can practice interior architecture and design in Nigeria while we innovate, while we adapt to the tools that we can find, through our innovation. So I want to appreciate you for that. And the fact that you mentioned tooling, that we need to kit ourselves to the level where we are able to face new challenges and compete in the global world. Thank you so much for that. And you've been very practical about it. That gladdens my heart. Without further ado, we want to quickly find out the questions online. If you have monitored any question online that we can read here for one of our speakers to deal with, is there any question that is very, very relevant to expand our knowledge, to enlarge, our knowledge base? Is there anyone that catches your fancy? Dr. Nisha and Professor Amole, you are still online, we expect. And Architect Biodun is here in person. Is there any question you read online on the chat box that you'd like to respond to quickly? Our time is fast spent.
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you.
There's a question I was just about typing, but I think I'll just speak to it. Let me go back to it. Okay, how important, I'm just taking part of it by architect Bisi Olumide. How important is the practical aspect of physical model making in the creation of sustainable interiors in relation to the challenge of the ease of use of design software to create 3D images? So my response to that is that in the teaching of interior design, we have to approach presentation of ideas, concepts, differently from how we'll do so in architecture. Because interior design is a more emotive, we deal more with emotions than an architect deals with their concepts. That's why we focus more on mood boards than an architect would. So presenting using physical 3D models is going to be more difficult for the client to read and understand your concept, because most physical models are at a much smaller scale, except when you're doing a one-on-one scale, like if you have a project, example, if a professional has a project, an interior design professional has a project to design hotel rooms, and before implementation, they may need to make a one-on-one-to-one scale, an actual physical model. That's a different thing, because in that sense, they're able to use the right textures, materials, patterns as it would be when it is when the hotel is completed. But it's very hard to do that kind of thing for students, or more a small scale model in design. So the 3D virtual reality, augmented reality, and artificial reality presentations would work better than model making. So that's, yeah. Thank you, Architect Olumide.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Nisha, is there any response from your side? And do you have any question that you read online that in the chat box that you would like to respond to? Are you still there? Okay, maybe she's offline now. Kansas is about 7 hours away, 7 hours behind our time here. So, but Architect Biodun, in terms of teaching the practicality of how to transform from concepts, ideas into reality, what is your narrative on that? Can you respond to, because we have our students online and they are main targets, because the practitioners are already formed in a way, they can only learn new tricks. But for our upcoming prospective students, what will you have to say to them in terms of transforming ideas, concept, like Prof said, into the practicality of the real work?
Yeah, transforming. I mean, I think the first thing is you need to be very curious, and you need to be able to get your hands dirty. Something we've noticed in the office is some people, they have brilliant ideas, and simply because, one, they do not know how to use the softwares. I mean, especially, I'm not going to, should I? Okay, especially Revit. Revit is a very lovely tool, but it can be very difficult to control. And so because you know it's going to be hard to achieve a certain form, you just, okay, you forget doing that, which is not right. If you have a challenge, you should always try and solve it. You might not solve it completely, but that process itself, it's a learning process. You come out better than you were before. rather than avoiding it. That's one. And two, you need to be very curious. Like I said, you need to get your hands dirty. Some people, they just go to sites, oh, this wall is not straight. It's not just about saying this wall is not straight. You need to find out why the wall is not straight and try and educate them on how to make it straight. You know, it goes a long way, you know. And so there are different ways you can learn. I mean, the world is now global. You can learn online, but most of the things I learned were in school, to be honest. I mean, that's why I have so many masters, is because I was searching for such knowledge. You know, some things you learn online for free, but some hidden things you pay for it, in all honesty, right? But execution, just be curious, basically. I mean, and the likes of Architect Aneto is one of my, he's a mentor. I don't know, when they called him and he just stood up and you didn't clap. I don't think you guys have seen his works before. Anyways, but yeah, you know, the details, you learn about detailing, always go to sites. You know, if you see people doing stuff, it also influences the way you design next time, you know. That's what I'll just say.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The time is fast spent. So that we don't keep ourselves here for too long, what we're going to do is compile the questions online and try to forward them to the prospective speakers and find out how we get responses from them. Because this is not just going to be a conference that ends here. We're going to transcribe all that we've been listening to from our 3 speakers. We will edit them. We'll find a way to do some extra research on the angles or dimensions for each one of them. And we will get one of our establishments in the school to publish them, even in monographs, so that it becomes our communicate for this conference. Since it's our maiden conference, and with the permission of my HOD, we are going to still be able to do them into a handbook that signified that we had this historic conference today. So I assure you that you can read what we have been able to listen to today, and for future use, we'll be able to use them effectively. So I want to thank you. But while the last speaker was on, one of the big elephants that was supposed to be here initially had so many other places to go, but he's our friend. And he's also one of our, you know, he mentors our younger students and a very admirable colleague. In the person of architect David Majekodumi. So one of the things he's going to do for us is that because he didn't give his opening remark, we are now going to help him to give us a closing remark so that we close. He'll be one of the people to close the session. So I'm going to give, he's the 3rd vice president of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. So please, sir, don't hide here again. Don't hide here again. Come to the front. Architect Bimbo is here. Bimbo Ajayi is here, one of the matriarchs of the architecture establishment or family in Nigeria. So please, ma'am, all the ladies, you better be mentored. She's also an alumnus of Unilag, right? So we welcome you specially. Before she goes, collect her number. All you these ladies in our class in year 3 and 4, make sure you hook her here so that we'll be getting more from her. So, sir, before Architect Fatui, 2 of you, you came, and after him, you will still tell us why you didn't come on time. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. The Vice Chancellor, the representative, the Dean of the Faculty, the head of the Department of Architecture, head of the Department of Interior Design, and my chairman, the state chapter, and Architect Abimbola Ajayi, all the fellows in the house. I think I can recognize Dr. Jegede all the fellows of NIA in the house and members, and the student most especially. Let me apologize for coming late. You see, the shoes that I'm wearing now, it's too big, and I have to cut myself into 4. I went to represent the president in Togo, which I just came back yesterday, and I went to represent him in IFMA, or International Federation of Facility, because I had to give a speech as well. Though it started at 10, I know this started at 11, but I thought I could just quickly, but I apologize for coming, but I'm glad that I'm here, I'm delighted to extend the warm greetings to the Department of Interior Architecture and Design on the occasion of this important program theme, Interiors in Contest, Exploring Culture, Climate, and Innovation in the Tropics. Yes, the theme is both timely and thought-provoking as it underscores the need for interior design solutions that are deeply rooted in our cultural identity. What I bring back from Togo is also similar to this. Our last speakers talked about recycling, upcycling. Now, being in Togo is a different scenario, but the research which we haven't done enough in this part of the world is to look at our own content. Our own content. Where I'm coming from, someone talk about using laterite to build. Yes, fine. We're looking at timbers, at least in one of the African countries, at least it's under construction or is completed. The 7 floors of building solely by timber. Yes, the challenges I think we have, or which I have, is when I look at the AI. Now with the AI, you can come up with so many things, but it does not address the content. And you see, one thing that kind of catch me when I got in here is seeing all these fabrics, which is locally made, than seeing all these royal satin, all these wonders interior. But it kind of encouraged me that, yes, we need to look into our own content and develop more on it. I commend the department for providing a platform that encourages critical discourse, creativity, and research-driven approaches to interior. Architecture and design, such engagements are vital in shaping professionals who can respond meaningfully to contemporary challenges while celebrating local values and global best practice. So on behalf of the Nigerian Institute of Architects and on behalf of the leadership, I congratulate the organizer, facilitators, and participants for their commitment to advancing knowledge and excellence in interior design. I'm confident that the deliberation, which I made part of it, and outcomes of this program will contribute significantly to the growth of the profession and built environment in the tropics. I wish you all and thank you for this successful and enriching event. Thank you very much and God bless you. There's a seat there. You see, I was once a student, and when I see the student, I always like to mingle with the student. So pardon me, sir. It's not that I disobey your high table, but like many of them know me, I rather prefer to mingle with them. Yes, thank you very much.
Allowed. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming. But we have one request to make to the national, the NIA national. This is a new department. We have not been accredited. We don't know whether when our students come in now, they will be given the chance to write, a licensing exam, just the way we do it through NIA. So we'd like you to respond to that quickly to give them hope and also give us hope.
Definitely yes, because we are guided by the Constitution. And the Constitution is so, I'll put it, archaic and rigid. but there's a review committee going on at the moment, which is to accommodate all the other schools of architecture, because at least we fought for it, and thanks be to God, we have Faculty of Architecture, and I think this is the second school that will be having the faculty, and we should just not sleep like that. But I think within the next 2 months or 3 months, the constitution will be reviewed now to accommodate other, departments in architecture. So give and take, yeah, maybe by November, or at least this is the first set, isn't it? No, we're yet to take it to. Oh, you're yet to do so. By the time you finish, I think, but I can assure you, Constitution is just about to be reviewed. It's undergoing the committee now to be reviewed to accommodate all other schools, because I did a bit of computer architecture, not in ICT, but in England. But I had to use my real architecture in order to do the exam. But we're getting there. Don't worry, I can assure you, and take me responsible for it, because we are pushing it so hard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's very reassuring. That's very reassuring. And I know a lot of the younger guys want to know where we are really headed. We're developing a robust curriculum that is localized, that is a revision of the old system that we have. So we're going to also be coming to the practitioners, the NIAs at the state and national levels, even to represent to them our curriculum so that they can have their input before it becomes final. But administratively, the university have already approved everything that we need to work with. And we know that, it is all in our hands to make it a success. Thank you for that. And I want my HOD to give us a closing remark, because he's wearing the cap. And I'll give the vote of thanks quickly because of time. I want to thank everyone that came. First of all, we'll start with our illustrious friends, because when I'm looking across the table, I feel a little bit shy that maybe these people said, thank you for coming. Architect B. Olagbami. I know it's not easy to keep a banker seated here. We are not sharing money here, so that you won't think that we'll give you money where you are going. Thank you so much. Architect Ekong, we really appreciate your time, and the architect Aneto, I'm always very happy when I see you, because you've given us unknowingly some chance to also excel one way or the other. Thank you for coming. My deans, the representative of our faculty dean, Professor Iweka represented the faculty dean, Professor Adebayo, who is unavoidably absent. The ACON president, my question to ACON too goes the same way with the representative of our national president, the PNIA. What is ACON going to do for us? Because right now we don't know whether some associations will not kick us out of the business. Some associations will not say they will lobby in Abuja, and before you know it, we're already fighting with tradesmen, and we are from school. What is ACON going to do? If you can't answer us today, please tell our Sadiko Ajayo, please. So please, shed.
Sorry, when I was, all protocols duly observed, when I was giving his speech, I kind of, because of time, I gave an abridged version. And those who were watching online said, what you gave was a random summary of what you were supposed to say. But in his exact words, he said, I want to assure students and faculty members and professionals present today that ACON is actively working towards establishing clear, transparent, and credible pathway for licensure for graduates of interior architecture programs that meets approved academic and professional benchmarks. So I think that summarizes that portion, allowing everybody who is going to engage with this program that it's all in course, and in due time, we'll get the results. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, because that's also reassuring and it gladdens the heart to be precise that the people concerned are thinking about us. Thank you so much. So in closing, I want to just read this to you, that on behalf of the Department of Department of Interior Architecture, you know, when you have been doing something for like 30 years, you'll be too long. It's not easy to remove, but don't worry, we are removing it. You know, I extend our sincere appreciation to all our distinguished speakers, Dr. Nisha from Kansas University, Professor Dolapo Amole from the Obafemi Awolowo University, Architect Shonibare, you know, one of our own in practice. And we want to appreciate their insightful contribution, and to our panelists, all the people that are here, the participants, for the depth of dialogue shared here today. We are grateful to the university management and organizing committee for their support, and to everyone who worked behind the scenes to make this conference a success. Thank you for all your presence, engagement, and commitment to advancing meaningful conversation on interiors, culture, and climate. Let us all leave here inspired, but pay attention to reading about culture carefully and responding to climate responsibility and finding lasting solutions to the built environment, and even from the cultural perspective. We appreciate you and thank you so much for being here. We can't thank you enough. And I hope that when we call upon you next time, because like I said earlier, we are going to be doing this regularly because we like to brainstorm with you. We will be calling upon you from the industry. Those ones are more close relationship. They will be online too, and we'll be able to, you know, get you more engaged in what we do. Thank you very much. We have photographs before you go. First, our invited guests, our deans, our professors, they will come here. Please get our photograph and the cameras ready. Where are the ushers? Where are our ushers? So we take your cameras, some iPhones that are very good, please. So sirs, please come up here. Sir. Prof, sir, please come. Architect Ajayi, please come. Yeah, all our invited. We want to take. No, we are here because of time. We are here. But hand them over.